Hi, I'm Maria Thea Harris on Velosos on social media. Welcome back to So Over 50 podcast. Stay listening.
So Organised Style podcast acknowledges traditional owners of country throughout Australia. We pay our respects to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures and to the elders past, present and emerging.
Thanks for joining us on So Over 50 podcast as we continue with this series where sewers continue with their sewing projects while living with chronic pain. So Over 50 intersects with all communities. Nikki Ansell, or Ichiku Park 23, was one of our Sew Over 50 sewers featured recently to show how the Sew Over 50 community intersects with all communities, such as the hashtag chronically sewn. Listeners, in today's podcast, Nikki talks about her personal loss through COVID between 3 and 5 minutes. This is a trigger warning for you if you have also suffered the loss of a loved one during COVID. Thank you. Nikki, thank you so much for being today's Sew Over 50 guest for the Chronically Sewn series.
Lovely to be here. Thank you, Maria.
I've been watching your sewing on Instagram and you're doing really well with putting together colours that are part of a wardrobe. It's very cohesive.
Yes. I guess I am always drawn to the same colours, blue, reds and purples. I think they're the colours I've always sewn, really, with a bit of black in there as well. But yeah, certainly I am always drawn to the same colours. It makes putting a wardrobe together so much easier when everything's more or less the same colour.
Easy for the first thing in the day, just to grab something and you know it's going to work.
Yes, indeed. Yes.
Your Instagram name is Ichiku Park 23. Can you tell us the story behind that?
When I set up my Instagram account, I didn't really want to make it anything too personal. I didn't want to make it my name. The reason I went for them, Ichiku Park is the song by the Small Faces, and it's my favourite song. I've always loved it. And then I needed to add 23 on the end, which is my birthday, because somebody already had Ichiku Park, as you often find with these names. That's the story behind my name. It does get some comments. It confuses people, but yeah, that's what it was.
So when you first bought a mobile phone, did you have Ichiku Park as your ringtone?
No, I've never actually set that up, to be perfectly honest. It's one of those things that I keep thinking, I really should set that up. At one point, my husband had it set as the alarm, which was great because it was always a good start to the day. But no, it's something that I really, really will get round to one of these days.
So Nikki, where can we find you online?
It's really just Instagram for me. Yeah, I don't have a blog. Again, that's something I've thought about, but it's just Instagram.
This is a more serious note and the reason why you're on this podcast. Can you talk us through your COVID experience?
Yes. So my COVID experience really started in December 2019 when my mum was diagnosed with terminal leukemia. So we knew she didn't have very long. So basically for the first part of 2020, I spent a lot of time going back and forth to see her, to help care for her and my dad. And then towards the end of March, I went down to visit her one Sunday. It was actually Mother's Day in the UK. My brother was there as well. And I was due just to stay overnight. And she deteriorated overnight. She wasn't at all well. And so I stayed on to help my dad look after her. And then on the Wednesday, my dad had been coughing all night and I'd got a bit of a cough as well, which was very unusual for me. Now, where they were living was in a retirement block. So there was a manager and, carers there to help. And because of the situation we were in, the manager arranged for a COVID test for us both. And so we had the COVID test. Really did not expect it to come back positive, but sure enough it did. So a couple of days later we got the result back as positive. And to be honest, neither of us were particularly unwell. My dad was 85 and he had some other health problems, but really didn't seem that unwell. But a week after he first started showing symptoms, he died. He just kind of drifted away. It was there wasn't a sudden deterioration. He just drifted away. And then to make matters worse, 4 hours later, my mum died.
Oh.
Yeah. So within 4 hours, they were both gone. And obviously, we'd been expecting it with my mum, but really not with my dad.
No.
Yeah, a couple of days later, I went home, still wasn't feeling well, but, not been particularly unwell. But then to see that, the months went by, we had all the, the dealings with the funeral, clearing the flat up and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Then months went by and I didn't get any better. I just had this severe fatigue, muscle aches, brain fog, and breathlessness. And then probably around summertime, the stories started coming out about long COVID. And I ended up at the GP and, had lots of tests done. Nothing came back as anything. And then I was also diagnosed with long COVID.
Mm.
So that was 18 months ago that I got COVID. And the situation is more or less the same, not getting any better, not getting any worse. I'm very, very limited in what I can do. I mean, I get up late. If I do anything during the day, if I pop out to the shops or anything, that's all I can do for the day. I will spend the rest of the day lying down. Every afternoon, I'm in bed again by 3 or 4, normally sleep, and then, get up for a bit in the evening. It's really a case of being incredibly limited in what I can do, choosing what I want to do.
Mm.
And some days are worse than others. If I've done too much the day before, then, the pain will be much worse. It's kind of just making the most of what I can do. I feel I've moved on a bit I spent most of last year waiting to get better.
Yeah.
And then this year I'm trying to concentrate on, okay, so, perhaps I won't get better. And, I need to concentrate on what I can do rather than what I can't do. And, obviously that includes some sewing when I can. I feel really lucky that I have a hobby that I've been able to continue. Sadly, a lot of the people with long COVID were previously, fit, active, doing a lot of sport. I was fit and active, but, that wasn't what I spent my time doing. I'm just so glad that I can continue with my hobby. Obviously, I can't do as much as I'd like to do, but it is something that I can do still.
From me to you, my condolences for such a sudden loss.
Thanks.
They'll always be there in your heart.
Yes, I mean, my mum taught me to sew. My mum always sewed. She made all our clothes. And when I was a little girl, she used to, she'd let me kind of play with bits of fabric and bits of pins. And then, as I got older, I learned to sew. I made lots of soft toys. I went to secondary school, learned how, had needlework classes. And that's when I started making clothes. I've made things. I've always made things.
Mm.
There was a period shortly after I was married when I sewed much less. I made my wedding dress. And then, obviously life gets busy. And I think partly it was because I wasn't near my mum, because she always used to help me with fitting. I didn't take up sewing seriously again until I was 50, actually. It was the year I was 50. And I was going to a summer ball. And I didn't want to buy a dress because dress shopping was always quite traumatic.
Mm-hmm.
And also I didn't want a lot of money on something that I would probably only wear once. So I thought, oh, I can make something. And so I did. I made a stretchy velvet dress, which I was really pleased with. It fitted nicely. And that's kind of what got me started. And that was the first time I'd ever sewn jersey. I then moved on. I got an overlocker. Yeah, not long after that, I think I was making all my clothes. So, which just, they still do. I very rarely buy anything ready-made.
I can understand that, especially, I mean, you made that decision. You had a one-off amazing night to go out to, and then you thought, I can make this, and you did. So that's really good.
Yeah. Over the years, I would go shopping with my mum and, we'd look at things and she'd say, you could make that. And I can, and I say the same thing to my daughter now. She'll be looking at something, oh, that would be so easy to make, love. I'm just really happy that I got started again. I feel like I've learned to sew all over again because of things are just so different. We have the internet to help us now. As I said, never sewn jersey fabrics before. Yeah, I just feel like I'm kind of new to sewing, but I've got a really good background behind me with the skills I learned early on.
When you made your mind up to start sewing again, you had that one night that you were trying to make sure that you could make this, and you did. What made you continue to sew?
think it was just the fact that because I'd done it and I thought, that was okay. And because I'd never liked shopping, I'm quite short, I've got full bust, short waisted. Shopping was always a real nightmare to find something that would fit me. So I think because I made something and it fitted, I thought, well, I can continue with this. I've said I'd made investment buying an overlocker. That's what kept me going. I made a few things and, people commented that how nice they were. That was it. I was hooked.
That's really good to hear. Now that you've had to change how you sew because of long COVID, are there any tools that you use that make your life easier?
The rotary cutter is something I have been using it for a while, but that definitely makes it a lot easier. For me, mainly, it's being able to do things sitting down. In fact, I was actually pressing seams at the iron the other day and I thought, I could do this sitting down. So, an ironing board at a ridiculously low height. I tend to think it's changed the way that I sew things, not necessarily in the right order. If I've got a t-shirt that I'm making, rather than do the shoulder seams and then do the neck, I would probably do the shoulder seams, the side seams, and the sleeve seams all at the same time because I can get them ready and then I can obviously go to the overlocker. So I think it's like that. I probably would make more than one thing at a time if I'm making something of similar colours. I limit the amount that I have to move around. Standing up and moving around is the thing that tires me out the most.
Have you rearranged your room so that you don't have to move around?
No, not really. I have a sewing room, but it's out in the garden. So it's a conversion from a garage. I do share it with 2 guinea pigs and a piano and a fridge and a freezer. So I'm kind of, a bit squidged at the end. And I do have a lot of craft stuff. I've got, obviously all the sewing stuff. I make cards. I do jewelry making. And when my mum became too unwell to do any more crafting, basically all her stuff came to me. So it's very, very crowded in there, and it's very cold as well. So I kind of sometimes I go out there to sew. Sometimes I bring the machines into the dining room, and so I would love to have the room all set up just for sewing, but until we have guinea pigs no longer, I have to share it.
Okay. As long as they don't complain, I suppose that's okay.
No, they make quite a lot of squeaking noises. I do like a bit of company, but no, they don't actually complain.
And you've also got a dog companion.
Yes, we do. It's actually 5 months today since we got our rescue dog, Ziggy, who came over from Romania. Last December, we lost our other dog, Dizzy, who used to feature quite a lot on my Instagram page. Mm-hmm. We couldn't get another puppy because, I just don't have the energy to deal with it. It took a few months to arrange, but as I say, Ziggy joined us in May. She's been an absolute delight to us. Seriously, I think, Dizzy sent us Ziggy because she's the perfect dog for us. She's quite nervous. Obviously, the dogs that come over from Romania, you don't know what you're getting. She was very, very scared. Gradually, she's learning to be a house dog. Street dog to house dog. She's now sleeping on my daughter's bed. She's getting the hang of it. But she's a very gentle dog. She's very quiet, and all she wants is companionship and fussing. She really is. When I go to bed in the afternoon, she will lie down beside me, and I say to her about 3 o'clock, I went, "Oh, we're going to bed, Ziggy," and she'll come follow me up. We've just started walking her. She took us a long time even to get her out in the garden, but we've got to the stage now where we can take her. She won't walk straight out the house. She likes the car, so she'll get in the car. We drive to a field. Yeah, that's been quite a big step for her. She's actually she started chasing squirrels, and that's all we want for her. Is just to be a normal dog and to have fun. She's just a delight. She really is.
She's got herself a really good home with you.
Yeah, the situation we're in is I'm home most of the time. My son's also home all the time, and my husband sometimes works from home. So there's always somebody here, mm-hmm. which is perfect for a dog. It's been a good match, I think.
That's good to hear. When did you discover the Sew Over 50 community?
I think I discovered it as probably when it started. I don't know why, I don't know what, how, but obviously just popped up in my feed. And yeah, I was so excited to have, a group of sewing people, around my age. It's just perfect. And it has been such an inspiration to me. I love it. I love the challenges they do and the guest editors. I just love everything about it. So Judith and Sandy, they deserve a medal for what they've done, really.
And it was great that you were able to contribute to the community as well. That was really lovely.
Yeah.
Nikki, before we finish, what advice would you give listeners who are also going through the same experience as you and who are in the sewing community?
For me, it's about just thinking about how you can do things. And I spend quite a lot of time just thinking about sewing. I have quite a large stash, loads of patterns. And I do, often I'm just thinking about it. I think, right, if I can't sew, let's think, what am I going to make next? I get a lot of inspiration from Instagram and from Sew Over 50 in particular. And I mean, a lot of the things that I plan in my head, I never make them. But, perhaps I will one day. I say it's just about trying to kind of think about maybe what you can do that's sewing related, which isn't actually sewing. So, planning things, thinking about fabric. I've also found that, maybe picking up other craft related hobbies is a good thing. I've been doing a lot of knitting recently because that is something I can just, I can do while sitting down, a bit of cross stitch as well. It's just about trying to think, right, okay, well, what can I do rather than focusing on, I can't sew today. Think, okay, right, well, what can I do? Maybe I can just scroll through a bit of Instagram, look through my patterns or whatever. That's what I've done. And I think it's been helpful to me.
Nikki, thank you for being helpful to our listeners who are living with long COVID as well, or know someone who is living with long COVID, to give them some advice on how to enjoy their craft, enjoy their sewing within the bounds of their energy that they have in the day.
Sadly, there are thousands and thousands of people with long COVID. There's going to be more. And, it is difficult. But, life's what you make it. You've just got to kind of get on with it. And yeah, as I say, I'm very thankful that sewing, is something that I can continue to do.
Thank you again, Nikki, for your time today and your energy to be able to produce this podcast for our listeners.
Thank you very much for inviting me, Maria.
Oh, you're most welcome. And have a lovely day, listeners. This episode of Sew Organised Style podcast for Sew Over 50 was produced by me, Maria Thea Harris, with permission of Nikki Ansell, soundbybensound.com. You can subscribe to Sew Organised Style podcast, but with an S, not a Z, on all good podcast apps. Give us a 5-star rating and review, and we hope you'll support us through our Patreon account. Make sure you go back and listen to our Sew Over 50 podcast archive and Sew Enabled podcasts. Every podcast is free with the aim to keep you company and encourage you to sew more often. Post any questions or suggestions you have on our Instagram account at Sew Organised Style, or on our website at www.seworganisedstyle.com, or in our Facebook page. We look forward to joining you in your sewing room next time. Stay safe, everyone.